So we're about to wrap up this, and an interesting next thing here is support flight cancellation. Okay, flight cancellation with notification to all customers, right? So unfortunately, we know that it may be happening, right? That the staff here could say, right? They could say cancel flight, right? Which is pretty bad, but things happen. Okay, so we have this cancel flight situation that we want to deal with, and cancel flight is not just like updating the it's not just updating the schedule, which of course needs to be updated, but it makes it will apparently do what? It will cause cancellation of all reservations related to this flight, right? Obviously, right? You cannot cancel flight and not do anything about reservations, because one thing is the flight schedule and another thing is the reservations that actually do exist, right? So first of all, or second, in this situation, of course, this is a mandatory thing. So this is definitely another include, right? And that's why I am using the solid line to say, hey, cancel flight means cancel all reservations. And we may decide in that case, again, which could be optional, we could place everybody on the waiting list, or make other decisions, but very likely that we just don't want to lose any of this information, and most likely just basically transfer everyone to the waiting list, and maybe even process furthermore to decide which possible flights these waiting list items could be resolved with. But also, if all of this is taking place, perhaps there's another thing to worry about, is issue refunds, right? If customer says, if my flight is canceled, I want my full refund, which we have to say we need to be able to issue refunds to these customers, and in that case, there's some decisions to make, perhaps. For example, we could do this. We could do it this way, right? You can say cancel flight, then issue refund to all of the reservations that were already paid for, right? That would be one decision. Another decision that we could make, maybe we could make it this way. We could just say, anytime there's a reservation that has successfully processed payment, let's issue the refund. Or we could make this yet optional, not mandatory. We could make this optional, and we can just basically wait, actually like this, and wait for customers' decision whether they want to stay on the waiting list or get their refund, right? So again, some things can be done optional, some things can be done mandatory, but it's important to realize that some of the use cases are not directly related to a specific actor, but they can be essentially a secondary type of scenario under main use case scenario, right? So you can see that use cases essentially can be related. And some of the relationships are mandatory, like this one clearly is. Cancel flight has this, direct relationship with cancel reservations, but some other things can be optional. All right. So this is, again, this is not an exact science. It is your understanding of the system and your interpretation of the business rules, which you would like to validate with your customer, stakeholders, expert users, and there are other aspects that you need to be aware of. For example, someone, perhaps even the legal team has to be involved, who can verify that all decisions that you're making is not violating some kind of government regulation or law or statute, or even sometimes it could be specific to municipality in which you're located, country, and so forth, right? So there could be other aspects that you need to be aware of, and essentially follow all these rules and regulations and policies, and that's why it's usually a lot of people who are involved. But not to underestimate the involvement of technical writers. If you don't want to write all of the documentation on your own, you can have a team of technical writers which can help you a great deal. They're usually very, very nice people who will be doing everything they can to document your system and make it as user-friendly as possible. So a lot of programmers actually, I know that actually took a turn in their career and transitioned to technical writing because they enjoyed doing documentation, and vice versa, I'm sure. Okay. So this is a cancel flight scenario, right? So reservation is involved, and refunds may also be involved in what we do. Keep track of agents and sales for each agent. So I think that somewhere you can even have a separate actor, like system administrator or something, or maybe human resource personnel, or someone with enough authority to keep track of individual agents, and so that they get their fair commission and all that needs to be handled for, but at least we need to keep track of their performance and sales, time spent, whatever you would normally keep track of with your primary type of user. Okay, so I'm not going to add any use cases for this because there could be many, there could be one, and that is something that is just like, just definitely another use case. Support airplane substitution. Again, this is in my decision here. We just say manage aircraft, but at the same time, when we say schedule flight, right? It seems like it's a separate separate update on the schedule, like update aircraft. Right, and you want to position the use cases on your diagram not randomly, but so that they're closely related use cases are somewhere located somewhere near each other, and so you can see that they're perhaps placed there not randomly but purposely because they're related. Okay. So moving on, support online access to the system by the customer. The customer can only check online flight schedule and check the status of the reservation that they have, right? So I will say customer here, view, let me switch over to this color, view, flight schedule, just view schedule, right? That's what we want to allow the customer to do according to our business rules, right? And then view registration, right? View reservation. a view reservation. So this is a view reservation right here. So this is what we would like to allow the customer to do as directly accessible use cases to them. I would be surprised if we would have asked the customer to actually create an account or logging and password for them, so that they need to be able to log in before they can view this information. So that would be there would be other use cases that naturally we want to be able to do this. But one final touch, which I think really deserves attention here, is that perhaps if we want the agent to also be able to view schedule and view reservation, and that just appears to be quite obvious to me, right? We can say then that what agent is essentially the agent could derive from the customer, so that if we want to avoid these excessive lines that connect an agent with the same use cases, right? So we could be doing this, which is kind of really, really ugly, right? So instead, we can just specify that the use cases that we added to support the customer actor could be also available to the agent by simply saying that the agent inherits the use cases of the customer by using this inheritance between the actors. So certain actors could be inheriting from one another, and this is a good example where you really want to these are all use cases that kind of naturally deal with our primary activity, reservations, viewing the schedule, payments, and so forth. But that would be a very nice option to establish this type of relationship, to indicate that agent can do these things. Now, notice that arrows really help, right? So you never go against the arrow. You cannot say that customer can make a payment directly simply because the arrow is directed the other way. The agent, however, can process the payment for the customer, and at the same time, the agent can view schedule and can view reservation, because we do have an arrow which allows us naturally to move in this direction. So essentially, all UML diagrams have to be somehow navigated, right? We need to say, where do we start to understand what this diagram is trying to tell us? And naturally, if we begin with our actors, we then can follow the arrows and basically understand what use cases are available to them, right? So arrows help readability and navigability of UML diagrams. One final thing I would like to show you is that I will just update my kind of color this one more time here, and I will tell you that essentially what is also very common on these use case diagrams is actually to draw a box, right? Draw a box around these use cases like this, just a box that basically surrounds our use cases. And of course my box is not going to be perfect because I have some logistics here to deal with, right? But you get the idea. This is my box around all of these use cases, so that we make it quite visible that whatever happens to be in the box is our system, right? So this is our system, and this is what it can do at the highest level, right? And then internally, of course, we will be creating classes which will support each use case, and classes and objects of these classes can then be shared by multiple use cases when we actually implement them, right? But this is basically the final touch on this round of experimentations with whatever the functional requirements may be for this specific airline reservation system requirements. And, it really, I'm just giving you an example of it. This is not an exact interpretation. It really depends on the customer. At some point, you want to show your customers what you've done and validate it with them, and they will give you your final answers. And of course, also today we're kind of focused a lot on this diagram, but at the same time, your primary goal is to be able to capture the list of use cases, and this is where UML is helpful. But ultimately, the most important thing is that for each of the use cases, you go through the formal description and describe everything that happens in it. All right. So, and for this, of course, we have the current handout, or when we go online here, when we go to this current assignment, this is where you can upload your UML diagrams. But then, of course, the actual description is essentially consisting of these boxes where you want to do the description of the use case, who are the actors, what preconditions exist before this can take place, if any, what is the main use case scenario, what is the exceptions or extensions which may be happening, what is the post condition, and how do you recognize these use cases, where they're high or low priority? And by the way, priority-wise, right here we might say that something like make reservation is highest priority, right? Because this is probably where you want to start, right? Then naturally, maybe you want to go and start supporting the waiting list, because it's really affecting your data structures that you need to be supporting. So I would say making reservation and managing the waiting list is very important. But before you even can work on these things, perhaps scheduling a flight, quickly do a bit of work for managing aircraft, and then ability to schedule flights would be high level, right? High priority level use cases. So then you can start making reservations and managing the waiting list, right? So then naturally you want to view the schedule so that you can start testing a little bit. You can get people to test this stuff when you start working on it, so that they can do some scheduling activity and then go and view the schedule. Right? As you begin to make reservations, perhaps, again, you would like to be able to naturally go and view the information so that you can verify that what you're doing is actually happening. And so that's why you need to prioritize things, right? But like I said earlier, print boarding pass and board the passenger is probably the lowest priority right now, because let us sort out all these reservation challenges and scheduling challenges before we can then say, okay, everything is fine, here's our passenger. They want to those become much less of a important things. So again, so that's why it's natural as the need for us to prioritize the use cases. So that pretty much the outlines today example. So this Friday, I will be posting a very similar business requirement document, and I will be asking you to submit your version of use cases and use case diagram, and your version of your interpretation of actors. So watch out, who are the actors? You think what relationship between the actors might be? What use cases would you like to recognize? So that's going to be our midterm.